Ontario Provincial Police have cleared 3 Toronto Police Service officers of lying and colluding in a high-profile criminal case. The force's investigation found that the officers did not give false testimony in the trial of a man accused of murdering an officer with his car. Here's Toronto's police chief.
The findings before us today are about allegations about our members. They've been exonerated. That's what this report is about in great detail and very thoroughly documented.
Umar Zameer was acquitted of first-degree murder in the death of Jeffrey Northrup in a parking garage. The officer and his partner weren't in uniform at the time, and Zameer said he didn't know the 2 people who approached the car were police. He said he thought they were criminals. He tried to escape. He struck Northrup as he drove away. Zameer was arrested after an unmarked police van rammed into his vehicle. At his 2024 trial, 3 officers testified that their colleague, Northrup, was standing in front of the car when he was struck. But a Toronto police accident investigator said that wasn't the case, that Northrup was on the ground and wasn't visible to the driver when he was hit. The judge told jurors that since all 3 officers had the same incorrect testimony, they may have colluded and lied. Zameer was found not guilty, and the judge apologized to him for the ordeal he had experienced, which included spending years in jail. Toronto's police chief ordered an independent investigation after the 5-week trial. CBC's Thomas Dagla has been following this story, and he's in Toronto. And Thomas, tell us more about how the police findings here by the OPP are different from what the jury heard at trial.
Yeah, well, for those who recall the murder trial of Umar Zameer 2 years ago, that key question was, where was Detective Constable Jeffrey Northrup located when he was struck by Zameer's car? Remember, Northrup and his partner were looking for a stabbing suspect in that underground parking garage near Toronto City Hall. They happened upon Zameer and his family in their BMW, approached them. There's a lot of confusion. Zameer and his wife testified, as you said, Ian, they did not know that they were being approached by officers who were in plain clothes at the time. 3 officers insisted that Northrup was standing in front of the BMW when it accelerated forward, and the judge essentially told the jury that's not possible based on all the evidence, including video evidence and the expertise of a Toronto police reconstructionist. Well, now we're back to that. The OPP report out today says their own accident reconstructionist and the new evidence they uncovered shows, yes, Northrup was standing in front of the BMW and he was knocked down when the car accelerated forward. Confusing? Yes, but the union representing Toronto police officers and the police chief, you heard him there, both said today the officers who were accused of colluding and lying have now been vindicated. Ian.
And Zameer's lawyer spoke to CBC News after the release of this new report. Tell us about his reaction.
Yeah, he says the OPP investigation has been a secretive process. There were 12 witnesses interviewed by provincial police for this case over the past 2 years, according to the report that I reviewed earlier today. It's 55 pages. Zameer's lawyer, Nader Hassan, says the OPP did not reach out to him or his client. And remember, this OPP investigation was requested by the Toronto Police Chief, Myron Demkiw himself. Zameer's lawyer says if Demkiw really wanted a transparent and believable review of the evidence, he would have asked for a public inquiry led by a retired judge, for instance, not a case of a police agency, the OPP, investigating a fellow police agency, the Toronto Police Service. Listen to Nader Hassan speaking to CBC News earlier.
The nicest thing that I could say about this report is that it really represents a missed opportunity. This was an opportunity for TPS to learn something about past mistakes. It was an opportunity for Chief Demkiw to show some real leadership and say, hey, we screwed up, our officers screwed up, but we're gonna try to learn from our mistakes and do better. Because a police force exists to serve us, to serve Torontonians in the case of the Toronto Police Service. It doesn't exist to be an apologist for the bad apples within their ranks.
We've learned a bit of news this evening that I want to walk you through, Ian. It's about the timeline here of this investigation. I think it's important. I want to point out that the OPP have now confirmed that they wrapped up this investigation in January, and they handed over their findings to Toronto Police sometime in February. So in other words, Toronto's police chief has been sitting on these findings for some time. They did not come forward and say that they had received those OPP findings until last week. So there was at least a 2 or 3 week delay there when Toronto Police Service had the findings, didn't come forward and say that they had them. They were being hounded by the local media here in Toronto, given that Toronto Police were under renewed scrutiny because of another investigation into Toronto Police focusing on alleged corruption in the force called Project South. So a lot of heat on TPS right now, Toronto Police Service, and this timeline is going to lead to fresh questions if there weren't already enough. Ian.
CBC's Thomas Dagla in Toronto. Thank you, Thomas. So this case raises issues of public trust in police and how their conduct should be investigated. Ian Scott's a lawyer and former director of Ontario's Special Investigations Unit, the SIU. That's an independent civilian agency that carries out criminal investigations into police conduct in the province. So, Ian, this OPP probe has cleared Toronto officers accused of lying in collusion. What's your reaction to this?
Oh, well, I listened to the press conference. I've had a chance to read the key findings of the report, and I find them absolutely bewildering. There is no way that you can square the accident reconstruction part of this report with what happened at trial. And let's recall, this whole case is largely about, did Mr. Zameer intentionally run over a police officer who was standing in front of his motor vehicle? Or was it a graze off the rear part of his car as he was trying to reverse out of a situation where he thought he was being attacked by a bunch of hooligans? And at trial, and you got to remember, at trial, there were two accident reconstructions, one from the police, the Toronto Police, and the other from the defense. And they agreed with each other. They agreed that there was a glancing blow off the car, and that the evidence did not support the constable, the detective constable in Northrop, being in front of this vehicle. So, you know, the judge and the jury had no option but to accept that evidence. Then we get a report two years later, and by the way, the report does not include the entire report. It's merely a summary of the report by a detective constable within the OPP, who is their accident reconstructionist, who completely belies the position of these two other reports. I mean, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, and it really does come down to this new OPP accident reconstruction report, as you point out, contradicting the Toronto Police report and the defense analysis of that. I guess one key difference, Ian, between those three reports is that the two that were presented to court were open to scrutiny and examination and cross-examination. And this OPP report, the details of which are not in what was made public. I also read the 60-some pages today, and I saw a summary of it, but not the original source of that. But also, it has not been subject to cross-examination by other parties.
You're absolutely right. And at this point, in my view, very strongly towards the need for a public inquiry. The only way we're going to clear the air on this is a thorough review of particularly this part of the report. I mean, there's all the other aspects about the utterances by the officers and everything, but it really boils down to this forensic evidence. And, I don't want to completely reject the OPP report, but I'm certainly not going to accept it on its face. And given the choice between two reports who should have been opposing each other, I mean, this is the way experts battle out in court. You get one expert saying one thing and the other expert saying the other. They agreed with each other. So what is going on here? Was that Toronto Police Service accident reconstructionist completely incompetent, but incompetent in a manner that aligned with the defense engineer? It's mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling.
And so it's not lost on me that you were with the SIU, that examines police conduct in certain circumstances. I assume this has to do with jurisdictions and mandates, but why wouldn't the SIU be involved in a case like this?
The SIU's mandate is quite limited. It's death caused by police officers, not the other way around. Serious injury and allegation of sexual assaults. It's all in the statute. And frankly, I think there should be an amendment. There was a report done by the Chief Justice of this province in about 2017, which led to the new SIU Act. Chief Justice Mike, excuse me one sec. Chief Justice Michael Tulloch, and he recommended that the SIU be able to take on cases where there's public interest. And I think that amendment should take place. I might add that Alberta already has that. Alberta, which has the equivalent of the SIU, it's called ACERT, Alberta Serious Incident Response Team, also can, on referral, do cases of a sensitive or serious nature. Because the problem with this report is not only the mind-boggling result, which would have happened no matter who's doing it, but the fact that there's a shadow over it. There's a stain. It was another police service doing this investigation. So, immediately people are going to think there's a bias going on.
Yeah, and listen, maybe at the end of the day, the Ontario Provincial Police accident investigator is right, and the Toronto Police Service accident investigator is wrong. But we have no way, I have no way, you have no way of making that assessment based on what has been made publicly available. Listen, I got one more question, really important. I want to get to this. The president of the Toronto Police Association is calling for an apology from the judge here, Superior Court Justice Anne Malloy, who said in court that given these three police officers had the same story that is at odds with what the experts in court said, given that, it would appear that they may have colluded and may be lying. So now the Toronto Police Union is asking for that judge to apologize. What's your reaction to that?
Well, it's not going to happen. I mean, judges say what they say in court about the particular case, and they walk away, and there's a legal term called functus. It's over for them. If the Crown had so much difficulty, what happened there? Why didn't they appeal this case? There's way too late for an appeal now. And the idea that the Toronto Police Association is going to, quote unquote, look at their options is ridiculous. Judges have complete immunity when they're acting within the course of their responsibilities. Otherwise, judge would be sued by every aggrieved party after every trial. It's not going to happen.
Well, let me ask you this, a follow-up question to that. There have been cases, I've been in court covering stories where judges have said questionable things, have said, I would argue, reckless things. But what about what Justice Malloy said in this case?
Well, based upon the evidence she heard in court, and as I was following it in the papers, it seemed to be an extremely defensible position she was taking. I mean, if you accept, once again, this boils down absolutely to these accident reconstructionists. If you accept both accident reconstructionists, the Crown accident reconstructionist and the defense one, you cannot square it with the three evidence of the police officers. So where does that leave you? I mean, if there's no discordance between the forensic evidence. So that's kind of like an anchor. You look at what, when you look at a case, you try to analyze a case, you try to say, well, what's in dispute here? Well, at that trial, there was no dispute about the accident reconstruction evidence. They agreed with each other. So that puts the oral evidence under a heavy spotlight. And that led to her comments. And on the basis of what we know at this point, they seem to be well taken and well spoken.
Yeah. Ian Scott is a lawyer and former director of Ontario's Special Investigations Unit. And Ian, I really appreciate your analysis on stories like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.